billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
That was unfortunately Brian Kilmeade suggesting that we should, let me get this straight, murder homeless people for the crime of presumably being homeless. I legitimately have no clue why people watch Fox News. Like, how do you hear that and think, yeah, I'm getting my news from an accurate source? At any rate, he does attempt to offer a sincere apology. I'll let you judge for yourself.
In the morning, we were discussing the murder of Irina Zaruska in Charlotte, North Carolina, and how to stop these kinds of attacks by homeless, mentally ill assailants, including institutionalizing or jailing such people so they cannot attack again. Now, during that discussion, I wrongly said they should get lethal injections. I apologize for that extremely callous remark. I'm obviously aware that not all mentally ill homeless people act as the perpetrator did in North Carolina, and that so many homeless people deserve our empathy and compassion.
Yeah, if you were looking for sincerity and empathy from someone who believes that the homeless people should be killed because they're homeless, I don't know what to tell you, but that definitely was not it. The right wing loves to tout the expression all lives matter, especially in retort to minorities, drawing attention to the fact that we experience systematic oppression and violence at the hands of the state. But when it gets down to it, they don't even slightly believe that. And they don't even pretend like they do, other than saying that one sentence. They fundamentally believe that certain people do not deserve rights.
We worry about adversaries, China sending hundreds of thousands of people into the country because of the open border, Russia, the same thing. What can you tell us about the bigger worry? You worried more about adversaries trying to unseat America as the #1 superpower, or the enemy within, Americans who are turning against their fellow citizens?
Oh, gosh, Maria, you are exactly right. So we talk a lot about cartels and known and suspected terrorists and gang organizations, but the fact is that those evil foreign governments that have sought to take us down for decades and decades, such as China, they infiltrated our country too. They crossed those borders under the Biden policies that opened us up and made us so vulnerable for national security threats. So we do have efforts to make sure that we're removing those individuals as well. And listen, we're a nation of laws. We have borders. We enforce those laws now. We will go after every single person that is a criminal alien that needs to be removed for the safety of our future.
Here we have Maria Bartiromo and Secretary Kristi Noem talking about which threat is worse to Americans. Adversarial nations like Russia and China, and some others, or immigrants. And here we have Secretary Noem suggesting that immigrants are worse. Full stop. The enemy within, they consider what immigration is. So they believe that homeless people should be murdered and that immigrants are worse than adversarial nations. But let's see what other Trump supporters believe about immigrants.
Like, actually, a lot more people think that if you could just literally just shoot people at the border, like they wouldn't come anymore. If you put alligators out there or snakes in the water.
Would we want to be a country that shot people who came across the border then?
Yeah, I mean, because you can't just let everyone overrun the country, because you're gonna make it so the whole boat crashes, tips over and sinks. You want to only let in a certain amount, and you want to marry. You don't want, and you want to scream too. You don't want just people to walk in by foot. Right. You want them to come by airplanes. You want them to come by trains. You want to screen them. You don't know who they are before they come in.
So once in a while, if you shot some, you think it would scare people from coming?
And like, why do people think that we have to be the country that lets everyone in? Like everyone's under this like brainwashing that you have to let everyone in, or you're a mean person or something.
Well, we were a country of immigrants, right?
I mean, you could go back to like ancient Rome, the same thing. They let in too many people from around their empire.
But I'm just talking about our country was founded on principles about, give us you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry.
But we didn't have they weren't getting food stamps. They weren't getting supported by the government when they came here. They were on their own when they came here. If they did that now, people would respect them more. If they did that.
So one of my favorite things about watching Trump rally interviews is that they're always riddled with gems like this young man. And if you were unfortunate enough to be able to make it through that gibberish, you notice that he believes that immigrants should just be shot at the border. He didn't say cartel members who are bringing in drugs or terrorists. He just said immigrants, we should just shoot people at the border because there are too many people in America. All that nonsense about bringing me your tired masses yearning to breathe free, or whatever the quote is. No. They don't want none of that. The right wing doesn't want none of that. But it doesn't just stop at dummies on the street like this fella. The Supreme Court under the Trump administration, which I granted is an independent organization, but Trump's Supreme Court has made a very startling ruling recently. Take a look.
This week, the Supreme Court gave federal agents the green light to geographically, racially, linguistically profile people in the course of immigration sweeps in Los Angeles. Now, in doing so, it shattered one of the bedrocks of the American legal tradition.
So the Supreme Court has decided that racial profiling is legal and constitutional, such that ICE may use ethnicity as probable cause to search and seize people in the United States. So if you're tracking, for those of you at home, homeless people should be shot and killed or legally inject. Immigrants are a worse threat to this nation than hostile nations. And immigrants at the border should be shot. And the Supreme Court has now allowed for racial profiling in cases of administrating immigration law. So we now have 4 classes of people who the right wing have said their rights should be less than whoever is left in this pile. This is a scary reality that we're in.
Now, we must also be real. We must be honest with the population. Having an armed citizenry comes with a price. And that is part of liberty. Driving comes with a price. 50,000 people die on the road every year. That's a price. You get rid of driving, you'd have 50,000 less auto fatalities. But we have decided that the benefit of driving, speed, accessibility, mobility, having products, services, is worth the cost of 50,000 people dying on the road. Wow. So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to 0. It will not happen.
So Columbine, Sandy Hook, Parkland, Uvalde, and unfortunately on the same day that Charlie Kirk was tragically shot, there was another school shooting in Colorado. And that's Charlie Kirk there suggesting that all those kids who were killed, children who were killed at school, were a necessary consequence of preserving some people's rights for gun ownership. So the right wing has fundamentally decided that they are comfortable with the deaths of children to preserve some people's rights to weapons. So we have decided that kids' lives don't matter. So that's brown people who are vaguely ethnic. Their lives don't matter. Immigrants, the homeless, kids' lives do not matter. We cannot inconvenience gun owners slightly, because no one's suggesting that guns should be completely outlawed, because we do have a Second Amendment. But we're talking about having common sense gun control and reform in this country. But that is a bridge too far. The right wing would rather there be a school shooting every week than to do something about it legislatively, because, again, their lives do not matter. But the real issue here is that the enemies overall are people who fundamentally disagree with MAGA.
Your rhetoric needs to be toned down. You need to lower the temperature. When Joe Biden was in office, we listened, we watched, and we spoke, but we spoke fluently, and we didn't speak with this hate, and we didn't speak with these words that were drawing people to take action against us. You tried to kill our president twice. You actually killed Charlie. Enough is enough. Stop the shenanigans and lower this rhetoric to a normal place where we could all exist together.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable how, they've politicized and weaponized politics. I mean, it's incredible.
Oh, no, the Democrats' rhetoric has just gotten out of hand. When Biden was president, we just sat meekly by, politely waiting our turn to be in power again. We certainly didn't turn individuals like Kyle Rittenhouse into national heroes for killing people. And we certainly didn't put it to suggest that our own Representative Liz Cheney should be strung out in front of a firing squad for daring to disagree with Donald Trump. And we certainly didn't tell a white nationalist terrorist group, the Proud Boys, to stand back and stand by. That wasn't us. That was the Democrats with all that disgusting rhetoric.
And let me tell you something I'd not share with anybody, but the last message that Charlie Kirk gave to me before he joined his creator in heaven was he said that we have to dismantle and take on the radical left organizations in this country that are fomenting violence. That was the last message that he sent me before that assassin stole him from all of us. And we are going to do that under President Trump's leadership. I don't care how. It could be a RICO charge, a conspiracy charge, conspiracy against the United States, insurrection, but we are going to do what it takes to dismantle the organizations and the entities that are fomenting riots, that are doxing, that are trying to inspire terrorism, and that are committing acts of wanton violence. It has to stop. And my message is to all of the domestic terrorists in this country spreading this evil hate, you want us to live in fear? We will not live in fear, but you will live in exile. Because the power of law enforcement under President Trump's leadership will be used to find you, will be used to take away your money, take away your power, and if you've broken the law, to take away your freedom, Sean.
That was Stephen Miller, who was an angry thumb come to life, bringing the rhetoric way down, really practicing what he preaches and really not escalating the tensions in American politics. But in reality, the conservatives in this country have normalized violent rhetoric and have championed violent rhetoric from the very top, the leader of the MAGA movement, on down the chain. Take a look.
The campaign of 2016 was a watershed in terms of the beginning of a systematic attempt by Trump and people around him to shift our political culture from a democracy to an authoritarian one. And what that meant was he was speaking about violence as something positive.
I'd like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
And he was in a way kind of having an emotional retraining of Americans to say, violence against your neighbor, it doesn't always have to be bad. Trump presented himself as a victim of a whole democratic system that was out to get him. And the only way to right this wrong was through violence, and that violence would be purifying, it would be patriotic.
She doesn't see a clear exit ramp.
There hasn't been a moment like this with a strict parallel where you have a bipartisan system in which one of those two parties has left democracy to the point of fomenting a coup attempt. And they are unrepentant. And the leader and beneficiary of that coup attempt, which failed, is still in good standing. The other wild card is the availability of guns. So we're in uncharted terrain.
President Trump is the patient zero of violent political rhetoric. He's also the patient zero of the us's versus the them's. He fundamentally hates whole swaths of this nation. That's why he's sending the National Guard out to domestic cities. And he even sometimes hates his own supporters when they disagree with him, calling them a bunch of losers who are easily manipulatable. So he sends out Stephen Miller to suggest that left-leaning organizations and individuals should have their rights stripped away from them and their freedoms taken away simply because they are on the left. So all lives matter, except for homeless people, immigrants, people who look and sound vaguely like immigrants, Democrats, and people who agree with the left. Other than that, America is the land of the free and home of the brave, as long as you look and sound and believe exactly like we tell you to. Otherwise, you should be shot or deported or arrested or who knows what. This is Trump's America.